Emily Carter had once believed that love could survive anything. She had trusted the man she planned to marry. She had imagined a future filled with laughter, children, and peaceful evenings beside a warm fire. But those dreams shattered the day she discovered that the man she loved had been seeing another woman for months. The betrayal spread through the town faster than wildfire. People whispered when she walked past. Some pitied her. Others enjoyed the scandal. Emily could no longer bear the looks or the rumors. Every street reminded her of broken promises. One cold morning she packed a small bag and left without telling anyone where she was going. She followed an old trail that wound through the hills and into the wilderness. At first the silence felt comforting. There were no whispers among the trees, no cruel eyes watching her, only the sound of the wind and distant birds. But as the day passed, the weather changed. Dark clouds gathered over the mountains. Rain began to fall. The trail became muddy and difficult to follow. Emily kept walking, even though she was exhausted. She wanted to put as much distance as possible between herself and her old life. The storm grew stronger. Thunder echoed across the valley. Lightning flashed above the trees. Emily lost sight of the trail. She wandered for hours searching for a way back. Her boots slipped on wet rocks. Her clothes were soaked by the rain. Fear slowly replaced her determination. As night approached, she realized she was completely lost. Then she heard something moving in the darkness. Branches cracked nearby. Her heart raced. She turned quickly, but saw nothing. The sound came again. Closer this time. Emily began to run. She stumbled through the trees with panic filling her chest. The ground suddenly disappeared beneath her feet. She fell down a steep slope and struck her head against a rock. Everything went dark. Miles away, another soul carried wounds that no one could see. His name was Nanton. Once he had been one of the most respected Apache warriors in this region. Brave, strong, loyal. But years earlier he had lost the woman he loved. A deadly fever had swept through his people. Despite all his efforts, he could not save her. Since that day, part of his heart had died. Nanton continued to protect his tribe when needed, but he spent most of his time alone in a cabin near the mountains. Solitude was easier than facing memories. That evening he was returning from a hunting trip when he noticed fresh tracks in the mud. They did not belong to an animal. Someone had entered the forest during the storm. He followed the trail until he reached the bottom of a rocky slope. There he found a woman lying unconscious in the rain. For a moment he simply stood still. The stranger looked fragile and exhausted. Her face carried the traces of deep sadness even while she slept. Nanton checked for injuries. She was alive. Without hesitation he lifted her into his arms. The storm continued to rage around them as he carried her through the forest. Hours later he reached his cabin. He placed the woman near the fire and covered her with warm blankets. As he watched the flames dance across the room, he wondered who she was and why fate had brought her into his path. Outside, the storm slowly faded. Inside the cabin, two broken hearts rested under the same roof for the first time. Neither of them knew that this night would change their lives forever. When Emily opened her eyes the next morning, she did not recognize the wooden ceiling above her. For a few seconds she wondered where she was. Then memories returned. The storm, the forest, the fall. She tried to sit up, but a sharp pain shot through her head. A voice came from across the room. "You should rest." Emily turned quickly. A tall Apache man stood near the fireplace. His dark hair rested on his shoulders. His face was calm but serious. He held a wooden bowl in his hands. Fear immediately filled her chest. She had never been alone with an Apache before. Nanton noticed the fear in her eyes. "I found you unconscious during the storm," he said. "You were injured." Emily looked around. The cabin was simple but clean. Dried herbs hung from the walls. A hunting bow rested near the door. Everything felt peaceful. "You saved me?" she asked. Nanton nodded. "You would not have survived the night." Emily lowered her eyes. "Thank you." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Nanton handed her the bowl. "It will help. You regain your strength." Emily accepted it carefully. The warm soup soothed her body. She had not realized how hungry she was. As she ate, Nanton stepped outside to give her space. Emily watched him through the window. He moved with quiet confidence. There was strength in every step. Yet something about him seemed lonely, the same loneliness she carried inside herself. Later that afternoon, she felt strong enough to stand. She stepped outside. Cabin. The storm had vanished. Sunlight poured across the mountains. Birds sang among the trees. A nearby stream sparkled beneath the morning sky for the first time in months. Emily felt a small sense of peace. Nanton was repairing a wooden fence nearby. "You should not be walking too much yet," he said. Emily managed a faint smile. "I was starting to feel trapped inside." A brief smile appeared on his face. It disappeared almost immediately. Emily noticed. "You do not smile very often." Nanton returned to his work. "There is not always a reason to smile." His answer surprised her. It sounded familiar, too. Familiar. Emily sat on a nearby log. "Someone hurt you?" 2. Nanton stopped working. 4. A long moment he stared at the mountains. Then he quietly said, "The woman I loved died many years ago." Emily immediately regretted asking, "I am sorry." Nanton nodded but said nothing more. Emily understood. Some wounds never completely healed. That evening they shared a simple meal beside the fire. The silence between them felt less uncomfortable now. Eventually Nanton asked, "Question. What brought you into the mountains alone?" Emily stared into the flames. She had spent weeks trying not to think about it. "My fiancé betrayed me." The words hurt even now. "He was the person I trusted most." Nanton listened quietly. "I left because I could not bear seeing him every day." For the first time, Nanton looked directly at her. Pain recognized pain. "You are running from your memories." Emily laughed softly. "Is that not what you are doing?" For a moment, neither spoke. Then something unexpected happened. Nanton smiled, a real smile, small but genuine. Emily smiled too. It was the first honest smile either of them had shared in a very long time. Outside the cabin, darkness settled across the forest. Inside, the fire crackled softly. Neither of them knew it yet, but the walls they had built around their hearts had begun to crack. Very slowly, very quietly, hope was finding its way back into their lives. Over the next several days, Emily remained at the cabin while her injuries healed. Each morning, she woke to the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of birds outside the window. Each day she found herself looking forward to Nanton's company. He was not a man of many words, but his actions revealed his character. He was patient. Kind. Honest. Qualities she had almost forgotten existed. One afternoon, Emily followed him to the nearby stream, where he often fished. The water flowed gently between large rocks. Sunlight danced across the surface. For a while, they sat in comfortable silence. Then Emily spoke. "I used to think my life was already planned." Nanton listened quietly. "I thought I knew exactly how my future would look." She stared at the water. "Now, I do not know anything anymore." Nanton nodded. "The future rarely follows the path we expect." Emily smiled. "Did you always speak like a wise elder?" A faint grin appeared on his face. "No. What changed?" The smile vanished. Life. Emily immediately understood. She knew that answer better than anyone. As the days passed, they began sharing more of their stories. Emily told him about her childhood, about her dreams, about the man who had shattered her trust. Nanton spoke about his tribe, about the years he spent as a warrior, about the woman he had loved. For the first time since her betrayal, Emily felt truly heard. Nanton never judged her, never interrupted her, never treated her pain as something small. And without realizing it, she began to trust him. One evening, they sat outside watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and orange. The sky seemed endless. "It is beautiful," Emily whispered. Nanton looked toward the horizon. She used to love sunsets. Emily knew he was talking about the woman he had lost. "Do you still think about her every day?" Nanton was silent for several seconds. "Yes." Emily lowered her eyes. Part of her felt guilty for asking, and Nanton surprised her. "I used to believe loving her meant I could never love anyone else." Emily slowly looked at him. "And now?" Nanton stared at the fading sun. "I do not know." His words lingered between them. Emily felt her heart beat a little faster. She quickly looked away. That night she found it difficult to sleep. For the first time she was thinking about someone other than the man who had betrayed her. Realization frightened her. The wounds in her heart were still fresh. She was not ready for another heartbreak. The next morning she decided to walk alone through the forest to clear her mind. The air was cool and peaceful. For a while she enjoyed the silence. Then she heard voices. Men. Nearby. Emily froze. She carefully moved closer. 3 rough-looking riders had stopped near the trail. One of them held a folded piece of paper. "The woman cannot be far," he said. "We keep searching." Emily's blood ran cold. She recognized the voice. It belonged to Victor, her former fiancé, the man she had run away from. He was here. In the mountains. Looking for her. Fear rushed through her body. She stepped backward, but accidentally snapped a branch. The men immediately turned. There. Victor pointed directly toward her. Emily ran. Branches whipped against her face as she raced through the forest. Behind her, she could hear the riders shouting. The distance between them was shrinking. Her heart pounded wildly. Then she saw the cabin ahead. "Nanton!" The riders burst into the clearing seconds later. Nanton stepped outside. His eyes instantly understood the situation. Victor climbed from his horse. "There she is." Emily moved behind Nanton. For the first time since meeting him, she felt completely safe. Victor glared at the Apache warrior. "Move aside. She belongs with me." Nanton's expression hardened. His voice was calm. "She belongs to no one." The tension in the clearing became deadly. And Emily suddenly realized that her past had finally caught up with her. Victor stared at Nanton with open hostility. The 2 men could not have been more different. Victor wore expensive clothes and carried himself with arrogance. Nanton stood calmly before the cabin, strong, silent, unshaken. Emily remained behind him. For the first time in months, she felt protected. Victor pointed toward her. "Emily, come with me." His voice sounded less like a request and more like an order. Emily felt anger rise inside her, the same anger she had carried since discovering his betrayal. "I am not going anywhere with you." Victor forced a smile. "You are upset. I understand that." "No, you do not." The smile vanished. Emily, we can fix this. She laughed bitterly. Fix it? Her voice trembled. You lied to me for months. Victor shifted uncomfortably. The men beside him exchanged glances. Clearly they had not expected Emily to challenge him so openly. Victor took a step forward. Whatever happened before does not matter now. It matters to me. The forest fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Nanton watched carefully, but remained calm. Victor finally turned his attention back to him. You have no place in this. Nanton's expression did not change. She has made her choice. Victor's jaw tightened. I am talking to her. And she answered? For several seconds neither man moved. The tension grew heavier. Victor seemed ready to explode. Then one of the riders leaned toward him. We should leave. Victor ignored him. His eyes remained fixed on Emily. You think this man can give you a future? Emily looked at Nantan. Then back at Victor. For the first time she noticed something important. Victor had always spoken about himself, his dreams, his plans, his needs. Nanton never did. He listened, he respected. He cared. The difference was impossible to ignore. Victor saw the answer in her eyes. His face darkened. You will regret this. Without another word, he climbed onto his horse. The three riders turned and disappeared into the trees. Emily released a breath she did not realize she had been holding. Her legs suddenly felt weak. Nanton stepped closer. Are you all right? She nodded. But tears filled her eyes. The encounter had reopened wounds she thought were beginning to heal. That evening they sat beside the fire. Neither spoke much. Eventually, Emily broke the silence. I used to think losing him was the worst thing that could happen to me. Nanton listened. Now I realize something. She stared into the flames. I never truly knew him. Nanton nodded slowly. Sometimes we love the person we believe someone is. Emily looked at him, not who they really are. Yes, his words struck deeply, because she knew they were true. A gentle silence followed. Then Emily noticed something unusual. Nanton was staring into the fire with a distant expression. You are thinking about her again. Nanton did not need to ask who the woman he had loved, the woman he had lost. He nodded. Today reminded me of something. What? He looked down at his hands. I spent years holding on to the past. Emily waited. I believed that if I moved forward, I would be betraying her memory. His voice was quiet, but maybe I was only punishing myself. Emily felt her heart ache. She understood exactly what he meant. Both of them had been prisoners of yesterday. Different stories, different pain, the same loneliness. Outside, the cabin darkness covered the mountains. Inside, the fire continued to burn. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Emily reached across the small space. Between them, her hand gently touched his. The gesture surprised both of them. Neither pulled away. The warmth of his hand sent an unfamiliar feeling through her chest. A feeling she had not allowed herself to feel for a very long time. Hope. Nantan looked at her. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, the world outside seemed to disappear. No betrayal. No grief. No painful memories. Only two wounded hearts slowly finding their way back to life. Neither said a word, but both felt it. Something beautiful had begun, and neither of them could stop it anymore. The days that followed felt different. Neither Emily nor Nanton spoke openly about the moment they had shared beside the fire. Yet, both knew something had changed. The distance that once existed between them was slowly disappearing. They spent more time together. They walked through the forest trails. They fished beside the stream. They shared stories beneath the evening sky. For the first time in years, Nanton found himself laughing again. Real laughter. Not the polite smile he occasionally offered others. Emily noticed it too. Every time she heard it, her heart grew lighter. One afternoon, they climbed a hill, overlooking the valley. Wildflowers covered the ground. The mountains stretched endlessly beyond the horizon. Emily sat beneath a large tree while Nanton gathered wood nearby. For several minutes, she simply watched him. There was strength in everything he did. But what she admired most was not his strength. It was his kindness, the way he treated others, the way he listened, the way he protected, without demanding anything in return. Eventually, Nanton sat beside her. Neither spoke. The silence felt comfortable. Peaceful. Emily looked toward the valley below. I never thought I could feel happy again. Nanton followed her gaze. Neither did I. Their eyes met. This time, neither looked away. Emily felt her heartbeat quicken. So did Nantan. The feeling between them had become impossible to ignore. But neither wanted to rush. Both knew how fragile wounded hearts could be. As the sun began to set, they started back toward the cabin. Halfway down the trail, they encountered an elderly Apache woman carrying a basket. Nanton immediately smiled. Grandmother Ayana. The old woman laughed warmly. I was beginning to think you had forgotten your people. Nanton chuckled. That would never happen. Ayana's eyes shifted toward Emily. A knowing smile appeared on her face. So this is the woman. Emily blushed. The woman? She asked. Ayana laughed again. The woman who finally convinced the stubborn warrior to smile. Nantan looked embarrassed. Emily could not help smiling. For the next few minutes they walked together. Before leaving, Ayana gently touched Emily's hand. There is great sadness in your heart. Emily lowered her eyes. There was. The old woman nodded. And now? Emily glanced at Nantan. For a moment. She did not answer. Then she smiled softly. It is getting better. Ayana seemed pleased. Good. The elderly woman looked at both of them. Pain can break a heart, but sometimes it also opens it. Her words stayed with them long after she disappeared down the trail. That night, Emily sat outside the cabin watching the stars. The sky was clear. Thousands of lights shimmered above the mountains. She heard footsteps behind her. Nanton joined her. For a while, they simply watched the stars. Together. Then Emily spoke quietly. Do you ever wonder why we met? Nantan thought about the question. Every day, Emily smiled. And what is your answer? He looked at her. His dark eyes reflected the starlight. Maybe we were both lost. Emily waited. And maybe we needed someone who understood. The words touched her deeply, because they were true. No one had understood her pain the way Nantan did. No, one had looked beyond her wounds. Without thinking, she moved closer. Their shoulders touched. Neither moved away. The night seemed to grow still around them. Slowly Nantan reached for her hand. Emily allowed her fingers to intertwine with his. For several heartbeats, neither spoke. Then Nantan did something he had not done since losing the woman he once loved. He opened his heart. I am afraid. Emily looked surprised. Afraid of what? His voice was quiet. Of losing someone again. Emily felt tears gather in her eyes. She understood that fear because she carried her own. She squeezed his hand gently. We cannot live our lives hiding from pain. Nantan looked at her. No, we deserve another chance. For a long moment they stared at one another. Then slowly. Gently. Nantan leaned forward. Their first kiss was soft and tender, not born from passion alone, but from trust. Healing. And hope. When they finally pulled apart, neither could stop smiling. For the first time in many years, both hearts truly believed in love again. The weeks that followed became some of the happiest either Emily or Nantan had known in years. Their days were simple. Peaceful. Beautiful. Together. They repaired fences around the cabin. They explored hidden trails through the mountains. They shared meals beneath the stars. For the first time, both of them felt as though life was giving them something back, instead of taking things away. Even the people of Nanton's tribe began to notice the change. When he visited the village, he smiled more often. He laughed. He spoke with warmth. The elders quietly exchanged knowing glances. The lonely warrior, who had hidden from the world, was finally living again. One afternoon, Emily accompanied Nanton to the village. At first she felt nervous. Many of the Apache people were strangers to her, but her fears quickly faded. The villagers welcomed her kindly. Children ran through the open spaces laughing. Women shared food and stories. Elders greeted her with respect. Emily had not expected such warmth. By evening, she felt more at home than she had in her own town. As the sun began to set, a celebration started in the village. Music filled the air. Families gathered around large fires. The atmosphere was joyful. Nanton offered Emily his hand. "Dance with me." Emily smiled. "I do not know the steps." "Neither do I," she laughed. "That is not true." Nanton's eyes sparkled with amusement. Together they joined the celebration. For a little while the world felt perfect. Then everything changed. Late that night a rider arrived at the village. His horse was exhausted. The man's face was pale with urgency. The celebration immediately fell silent. The rider spoke quickly with several elders. Nanton's expression darkened as he listened. Emily felt a knot form in her stomach. When the meeting ended, she approached him. "What happened?" Nanton looked toward the mountains. "It is Victor." Emily's heart sank. "What about him?" "He has been spreading lies." Emily stared at him. "Lies?" Nanton nodded. "He is telling people that I kidnapped you." Anger flashed across Emily's face. "That is ridiculous." "Some people know it is." His voice remained calm. "But not everyone." The situation troubled her more than she wanted to admit. Victor had always cared about his reputation. Now he was trying to destroy Nanton's. The next morning another problem appeared. 2 local lawmen arrived from a nearby settlement. They carried questions. And accusations. Emily immediately stepped forward. "I came here willingly." One of the men nodded politely. "That may be true." The other crossed his arms. "But your former fiancé claims otherwise." Emily could hardly believe it. Victor was willing to invent any story if it meant getting what he wanted. The questioning lasted most of the day. Eventually, the lawmen left without taking action. But the damage had been done. A shadow now hung over their happiness. That evening, Emily sat beside the stream alone. The water moved quietly over the rocks. She felt guilty. If she had never come into Nanton's life, none of this would be happening. A few minutes later, Nanton joined her. Without speaking, he sat beside her. Emily stared at the water. "I am sorry." Nanton frowned. "For what?" "For bringing trouble into your life." The answer came immediately. "You brought no trouble." She looked at him. Victor did. Emily felt tears gathering in her eyes. What if he never stops? Nanton reached for her hand. His grip was steady, strong. And he said something she would never forget. "I spent years surviving pain alone." He looked directly at her. "I am not alone anymore." Emily felt her heart swell. No matter what Victor tried to do. No matter what lies he spread, they would face it together. Yet neither of them realized how far Victor was willing to go. Because while they sat beside the peaceful stream, Victor was already planning something far more dangerous than rumors. And this time he intended to remove Nanton from Emily's life forever. A few days later, Emily woke before sunrise. Something felt wrong. The air itself seemed heavy. She stepped outside the cabin and immediately noticed Nanton was gone. His horse was gone too. At first she thought nothing of it. Nanton often left early to hunt or patrol nearby trails. But hours passed. Then more hours. By midday, he still had not returned. A growing sense of unease settled in her chest. Late that afternoon, A young Apache rider arrived at the cabin. His horse was covered in sweat. Emily rushed toward him. What happened? The young warrior looked troubled. There was an ambush. Emily felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. What? Nanten is alive. Relief flooded through her, but it lasted only a moment. The rider continued. He was injured. Emily immediately climbed onto a horse. I am coming. The young warrior tried to stop her, but Emily refused. An hour later, they reached a small camp hidden among the hills. Several Apache warriors stood nearby. When Emily saw Nanten sitting beside a fire, her heart nearly broke. A deep wound crossed his shoulder. His clothing was stained with blood, yet he was alive. The moment he saw her, his expression softened. You should not be here. Emily ignored him. She knelt beside him. You were hurt. I will heal. Her eyes filled with tears. You could have died. Nanten gently touched her hand, but I did not. That evening, the truth finally emerged. One of the warriors had discovered evidence near the ambush. Site.tracks, weapons, witnesses, everything pointed to the same man. Victor. Emily sat silently after hearing the news. Part of her wanted to be surprised, but she was not. Victor had never accepted losing control. No, his obsession had become dangerous. The realization filled her with anger. The next morning she made a decision. Without telling Nanten, she rode toward the nearby settlement where Victor was staying. She intended to confront him once and for all. By the time Nanten discovered she was gone, she was already several miles away. His heart immediately filled with concern. He followed her trail without hesitation. Meanwhile, Emily arrived at Victor's ranch shortly before sunset. Several workers watched nervously as she approached. Victor stepped outside when he saw her. A smug smile crossed his face. I knew you had come back. Emily's expression hardened. I came to end this. Victor's smile faded. You belong with me. No. The answer came instantly. Firm. Certain. I never belonged to you. Victor stepped closer. His eyes burned with frustration. Everything I did was for us. Emily could hardly believe what she was hearing. You tried to have an innocent man killed. Victor said nothing. The silence was answer enough. Emily stared at him in disbelief. The man standing before her was not the man she once loved. Maybe he never had been. At that moment, another voice echoed across the yard. Emily. She turned. Nanten had arrived. Relief immediately washed over her. Victor's face twisted with anger. You again. Nanten calmly approached. His injured shoulder still hurt, but he ignored the pain. Victor glanced toward the men working nearby, and he made a mistake. The kind of mistake desperate men make. He loudly admitted everything. The lies, the ambush. The threats. His rage had finally overcome his caution, and dozens of witnesses heard every word. The yard fell silent. Victor suddenly realized what he had done. His face turned pale. The truth was no longer hidden. Everyone knew. Emily looked at him one last time. There was no hatred left inside. Her only sadness. The chapter of her life that had once caused so much pain was finally ending. She turned away and walked toward. Nantan. Victor called after her, but she never looked back. Because for the first time, she knew exactly where she belonged. Beside the man who had saved her life and healed her heart. Yet one final challenge still waited before their future could truly begin. After the confrontation at the ranch, the truth spread quickly across the region. People learned what Victor had done, the lies he had told, the ambush he had arranged, the manipulation he had used for years. Many who once respected him turned away. His reputation collapsed, almost overnight. For Emily, it felt like a heavy door finally closing behind her. A chapter filled with betrayal and pain was over. When she returned to the mountains with Nanten, She felt lighter than she had in years. For the first time, she was not running from her past. She was walking toward her future. Several weeks passed peacefully. Nanton's shoulder healed steadily. Life returned to its gentle rhythm. One afternoon, Emily was helping Ayana prepare food for a gathering in the village. The elderly woman studied her for a moment. Then she smiled. "You are different." Emily laughed softly. "I hope that is a good thing." "It is." Ayana nodded. "When you first arrived, your eyes carried sadness." The old woman touched Emily's cheek gently. "Now they carry hope." Emily felt warmth spread through her chest. Because it was true. The pain was no longer controlling her life. That evening, a large gathering was held in the village. Families shared food. Children played around the fires. Music drifted through the night air. As Emily watched everyone laughing together, she realized something important. She no longer felt like an outsider. These people had become part of her life, part of her heart. Later that night, Nanton led her away from the celebration. They climbed a small hill, overlooking the village. Below them, dozens of fires glowed like stars. The sight was beautiful. Emily smiled. "I never imagined my life would look like this." Nanton looked at her. "Neither did I." For a few moments, they stood quietly together. Then Nanton's expression became serious. Emily immediately noticed. "What is it?" Nanton took a deep breath. There were battles he had faced without fear. Storms he had survived. Enemies he had confronted. Yet this felt harder than all of them. Emily waited patiently. Finally, Nanton spoke. "When I lost the woman I loved years ago, I believed my heart had died with her." Emily gently squeezed his hand. "But then you arrived." His voice was quiet, honest. "You reminded me that life was not over." Tears filled Emily's eyes. Nanton reached into a small pouch. He removed a beautiful handcrafted necklace. The pendant had been carved from smooth stone. Simple, elegant, meaningful. It belonged to my family. Emily stared at it, speechless. Nanton stepped closer. "I do not want to spend the rest of my life without you." Her heart began to race. "I want to wake beside you every morning." His eyes never left hers. "I want to face every challenge with you." Emily could barely breathe. Then Nanton smiled, the same smile she had helped bring back into the world. "Will you marry me?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. Happy tears. The kind she thought she might never cry again. She nodded immediately. "Yes." Nanton laughed with relief. The answer had come so quickly that even he was surprised. Emily wrapped her arms around him. "Yes," she kissed him. And beneath the stars they held each other tightly. For a long time, neither wanted to let go. Back in the village, the news spread. Quickly, cheers erupted. Children ran through the camp shouting excitedly. Even the elders smiled. No one was happier than Ayana. "I have waited years for this stubborn warrior to find happiness." Everyone laughed. As the celebration continued deep into the night, Emily looked around at the people surrounding them. Friends, family, future. Everything she once thought she had lost. Yet one final shadow remained. Far away, Victor had disappeared after his disgrace. No one knew where he had gone. And although neither Emily nor Nanton realized it, the bitter man had not completely given up. One final choice still remained before their story could truly reach its happy ending. Preparations for the wedding filled the following weeks with excitement. The entire village seemed determined to celebrate. Families offered gifts. Children gathered flowers. Friends helped decorate the open space where the ceremony would take place. Everywhere Emily looked, she saw smiles. For someone who had once believed she would never trust again, it felt almost unreal. One morning, she stood beside the stream, watching the sunlight dance across the water. A joined her. The elderly woman smiled warmly. "You are thinking." Emily laughed softly. I always seem to be thinking. Ayana nodded. Are you afraid? The question surprised her. Emily considered it carefully. Then she answered honestly. A little. The old woman sat beside her. That is normal. Emily stared at the water. I spent so much time being hurt. Her voice grew quiet. Sometimes I still worry that happiness can disappear. Ayana gently squeezed her hand. Happiness always carries risk. Emily looked at her. So does love? The old woman smiled. But love is worth it. Those words stayed with Emily throughout the day. Meanwhile, Nanton was facing similar thoughts. That evening he sat alone on a hill, overlooking the valley. He watched the sunset and remembered the life he once had, the woman he had lost. The years of loneliness, the grief. Then he thought about Emily, the laughter she had brought back into his world. The peace she had given him, the future waiting ahead. For the first time he realized something important. He no longer felt trapped by the past. The memories remained, but they no longer controlled him. He had finally healed. A sound behind him interrupted his thoughts. Emily approached. Without speaking, she sat beside him. They watched the sunset together. Then she rested her head against his shoulder. Do you ever think about how close we came to never meeting? Nanton smiled. Often. Emily laughed softly. I almost turned back before the storm. Nanton looked at her. And I almost took a different trail that day. The realization sent a chill through both of them. A single decision could have changed everything. Instead, fate had brought them together. Two broken people. Two wounded hearts. And somehow they had found love. Several days later, unexpected news arrived. Victor had been found. Not by bounty hunters. Not by lawmen. By himself. A letter reached the settlement. In it, he admitted everything. The lies, the jealousy. The anger, the mistakes. He announced that he was leaving the region permanently. No threats. No excuses. Only regret when Joe. Emily finished reading the letter. She felt something she never expected. Relief, not revenge. Not satisfaction. Just peace. That chapter was truly over. She walked outside and found Nanton waiting. Without saying a word, she handed him the letter. After reading it, he folded it carefully. It is finished. Emily nodded. Yes. Then she did something she had wanted to do for a long time. She took the letter, walked to the fire, and dropped it into the flames. Both watched as it turned to ash. The past no longer had power over them. That night, the village gathered for a final celebration before the wedding. Music echoed beneath the stars. Laughter filled the air. As Emily danced with Nanton, she realized something extraordinary. She was no longer surviving. She was living, truly living. And tomorrow she would marry the man who had helped her find herself again. The man who had shown her that love was not weakness. It was strength. The man who had healed the wounds she thought would never disappear. Their journey was almost complete, and the happiest day of their lives was finally about to begin. The morning of the wedding arrived beneath a clear blue sky. Sunlight bathed the mountains in gold. Birds sang from the trees. The entire valley seemed alive with celebration. Emily stood outside a small lodge, surrounded by women from the village. They helped prepare her for the ceremony. Some braided flowers into her hair. Others adjusted the beautiful handmade dress she would wear. Everyone smiled. Everyone laughed. Yet Emily found herself growing emotional. Not because she was afraid, because she was happy. Truly happy. Feelings she once believed she would never experience again. Across the village, Nanton stood with several warriors and elders. For perhaps the first time in his life, he looked nervous. The men noticed immediately. One of them laughed. You faced enemies without fear. Another smiled. But a wedding makes you nervous. Even Nanton could not help laughing. Maybe they were right, because this day meant more to him than any battle he had ever fought. This day was about love, not about healing, about beginning again, as the ceremony approached. The entire village gathered in an open field surrounded by wildflowers. Families filled the space. Children sat near the front. The elders stood proudly beneath. The bright sky dot, and Emily appeared. The crowd fell silent. Nanton looked up. For a moment everything else disappeared. The people, the music, the sounds around him. There was only her, the woman who had entered his life during a storm, the woman who had taught him how to smile again, the woman who had healed his heart. Emily walked toward him, her eyes filled with tears. So were his. When she finally reached him, neither could stop smiling. The ceremony was simple, beautiful. The elders spoke about trust, respect, strength, love. Not the kind of love found in stories, but the kind earned through hardship, the kind that survives pain, the kind that heals broken hearts. When the time came, Nanton took Emily's hands. His voice was steady. "You gave me back a future." Emily wiped away tears. "You gave me back my faith in love." There was not a dry eye among the gathered crowd. The vows ended, the blessing was given, and at last they became husband and wife. Cheers erupted across the valley. Laughter filled the air. Music began again. The celebration lasted long into the evening. People danced around the fires. Children played beneath the stars. Friends shared stories. For hours happiness surrounded them. Later that night, Emily and Nanton slipped away from the celebration. They climbed the same hill where they had watched countless sunsets together. The village glowed below them. Tiny lights flickered in the darkness. Emily rested her head against his shoulder. For a while neither spoke. Then she smiled. "Do you remember the storm?" Nanton laughed softly. "The one that nearly killed you?" "Yes." She looked up at him. "It was the best thing that ever happened to me." Nanton kissed her forehead. "It was the best thing that ever happened to me, too." The stars shone brightly above them, the same stars that had watched over them through grief, loneliness, fear, and healing. Now those same stars watched two hearts finally at peace. Years later, people would still tell their story, the story of a lonely Apache warrior who had forgotten how to smile, and a woman who had stopped believing in love. Two wounded souls brought together by fate, two broken hearts that healed one another, and a love that proved the past does not have to define the future, because sometimes life gives us a second chance, and sometimes that second chance becomes the greatest blessing of all.